And I used to go up and I used to tell them, don't move my bike, don't touch my bike, just keep an eye on it, you know. So I've actually gone for births like with the helmet and all the gear. And
What do you take when you go for birth?
I used to take things earlier. I used to take a ball, I used to take the rebozo, how we make chapatis, the belan, the rolling pin, I used to take that also.
The rolling pin?
So yeah, it's
Where
one
do
of
you use the rolling pin?
not on you, I may not have. Now I've started using it for all my births, you know, massage the back.
Hi, welcome to 9+9, the Honest Pregnancy and Birthing podcast. And today we're talking with somebody who's been on the other side of giving birth, not the father, but a doula. Sanam is joining me here today. Thank you for coming, Sanam.
Thank you so much.
And we'll hear about her birth story and of course lots of other birth stories that she's been attending in her 15 years and over 400 births, so there's quite a lot of things to share.
So I started in 2011. I did my doula course in 2010. I told you I was earlier in films as an assistant director, and then I switched from there. I had no idea what I was going to do, and then I came into becoming a doula.
But how did you become a doula if you never had, like, you didn't have kids before you became a doula?
No, I wasn't even married. I was not married, yes.
But how, like, why this interest in, like, did you have a lot of siblings? Did you see a lot of births?
I'm the only child. Yeah, so it's a very funny story actually, a total Hindi movie story. So I was working as an assistant director for films, television, ads, and somehow it didn't work for me. I decided that there must be something else that I'll be better at, so I decided to quit overnight. And when I quit, I was at home for 3 or 4 months not knowing what to do with my life. And suddenly one day mom comes up and she's like, you know, I don't know what you're up to, I want you to come with me and meet a tarot reader. So I looked at her and I said, why a tarot reader now, you know, how are they going to help me? And she says, no, just shut up and come along. So I said, okay.
She must have been so desperate.
She was so angry because I was at home all day and night. And she takes me there and then we get chatting, and when she does the session, she says, you know, you should do something with children. And I looked at her because one of my lifelong dreams, I was studying in Australia, I was doing filmmaking in Australia, and I was working in a creche with the age group of 0 to 2 years. So when I came back to India, I wanted to open a creche here, but somehow it didn't materialize. So when she said something with babies, my initial thought process went into, oh my God, she's saying I should open a creche. And I kept asking her a lot of questions, and then out of the blues, while in the middle of the session, she says, why don't you become a doula? And I looked at her and I said, what on earth is a doula? So she looks back at me and she says, you know, there are these women who support mamas who are in labor, they support them and the families and all of that. I said, really, there's such a thing? And I was completely lost. I said, okay, let me think about it, but I didn't give it much thought at the time. A day or two later, I was like, what was that word, you know, that she spoke about? So I went online and I researched it. And I was like, wow, this looks like something that I might be interested in doing. So let me try and find out more about it. And over the span of time, I thought that I'd have to go abroad and settle down because there were no doulas in India. But I found midwives at the time, and I found doulas in India as well. So I actually found a course which was in the same locality where I was living. And I just went, I met them, I signed up, and within 6 months I was a doula.
But did they, like, you were very young, right?
I was.
What was their reaction?
Sonali, who is the head of Kappa India, she was quite happy to see someone coming in for the doula course, because abroad, see, doulas are very, very popular abroad. Every birth has a midwife, every birth has a doula, but in India the entire concept of doulas or natural birthing or water birthing had not come about. So when I finished my certification, it actually took me a while to start finding doctors who would support the concept of a doula being there for the birth and delivery. So
Yeah, did they feel like you would interfere with them?
I think so, yes, because every time I did apply, you know, I had to undertake 3 observatory births to finally become a doula and get my certificate. So I was not getting that anywhere. Nobody was willing to let me into a labor room. They kept telling me, you can be with the mama in her room, and as soon as she comes to a labor room, you're not allowed. And that was not fulfilling my requirement for the certificate. So finally I took the aid of Facebook, and I put out a message on Facebook saying that, you know, I've done this course and it's been 6 months that I've been trying to find someone who would allow me to be there for the birth. Can anybody help me? So the next day I get a call from this lady and she says, you know, I'm almost due now, and I would really like to give you the opportunity to be there for my birth. And I don't know her, I had no idea who she was. I for some reason felt that this isn't working out. And I went and I met the doctor, and surprisingly he said yes. He said, of course you can be there, and if you're helping my mama, please, feel free to come in. So when I finished that birth, I think we were there for 12 to 15 hours on an average, and when I got done with the birth, I was all packed and exhausted and ready to go home, and Dr. Feroz comes up and says, where do you think you're going? So I said, back home. So he says, but you told me you had to have 3 births to complete your certification. So I said, yes, so I hope you will call me for the next one. So he says, the next one is in that room, put your bags down and go there. So I looked at him and I said, okay, fine. So I put my bags down and I went to support the other mama, introduced myself and spoke to her, and went and sat down and started, supporting her and guiding her through labor. That labor was a little long as well. Once the birth happened and once I was ready to leave, I pick up my bag yet again and I'm ready to go out, and he stopped me again and he says, where do you think you're going? You still have the 3rd birth left. And by then it must have been more than, I think, 30-35 hours that I was in the hospital. So he says, are you tired? I said, I am. He says, okay, that's the doctor's room. Go and rest over there for an hour or 2 and then go to room number 3. And it was beautiful because with that kind of support that I received from Feroz sir, that was what actually allowed me to become a doula in Bombay today.
Also to be able to sustain for like 35 hours helping people birth, that is...
But that was one of the most beautiful experiences, because that is what taught me that yes, this is what I want to do. So today when I'm looking back 15 years, I know that I'm in the right space. This is exactly what I've wanted to do. It was my passion, and I realized that through those 3 births, and from that point onwards, then there was no stopping me. Then everything else aside, it's been doula work.
And you were so young, and then you got married, and you had a kid. But what was your first reaction when you saw a birth? Like, that was your first birth ever, right? The first time you saw a baby coming out of a woman.
Yeah. So I remember that day actually very clearly. I was standing on near the mama's head, and I requested, I said, you mind if I just go up front for a few seconds? And she says, go, learn as much as you can, at the time for the observatory. So I stood behind Doc and I was just watching that baby being born. And he actually asked me, he says, I hope you're not going to faint or anything. And I was like, no, I'm finding it, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And when that bachu came out, that was it. That was the gift of a lifetime. So even today, when we have long births, any birth, we have a long labor and we're exhausted, we may not have eaten. The best gift for any doula around the world is that baby being born and handed over to mom and dad. We see that our day is done, So I think that's the motivation that keeps us going.
But what were your thoughts when you saw this for the first time?
But there's no words that can actually, describe how you feel. To see a life being born out of a life, So there are no words. It's completely undescribable. And even today, I don't think there's been any birth. I've done more than 400 births till date, and I don't think there's been any birth where you've not shed a tear or not given a smile at the birth of a baby. It's so emotional being there, even though it's somebody else's baby. They're going to take the baby home. You're going to go back home and go back to your own 8-year-old who's driving you crazy. But you still shed a tear in pure joy, because it's one of the most beautiful things that you'll ever see. And I don't think there's anything as beautiful as that.
So when you gave birth yourself, or when you were pregnant yourself, what was your expectation and what was it really like?
To be very honest, I'm going to be very honest.
Yeah, please. Okay? It's the Honest Birthing Pregnancy podcast.
So when I found, first of all, I took ages to get pregnant. I had to go through a lot to get pregnant because I was not able to conceive. So, and I've been wanting kids. Like when I was going out for my honeymoon, my friends were like, don't you dare come back pregnant, because I was sure that I just wanted a baby. But I was unable to get pregnant, and then finally when I did get pregnant, by then I was already a doula. I had seen so many births, so I was a little bit scared.
Why were you scared? What did you see in those births that made you scared?
Births are different, sometimes they're very smooth, sometimes they're very nice, sometimes they're a little difficult as well. Labors sometimes can be difficult. So I had seen a bit more than it scared me a little bit, and I was like, okay, what if that happens to me? What if that happens? What if something wrong happens?
Did you have any stillbirth ever in
No,
your
no stillbirths. It was more labor related. When it comes to labor, it's what we make of it. If we prep ourselves well, if we practice good breathing and the massages and all of that, if we have a good support system in place, it becomes a lot more easier for a mom to go through that entire process of labor. At the time, I was the only doula in Bombay. So I was like, okay, who's going to support me? Because my husband is one who is so petrified, it takes 5 people to hold him down for an injection. So I was very worried about how he's going to support me during labor. So I told doc, I said, I'm not sure what we're doing, but I don't know what to do. And I was very keen on a water birth at the time. But the doctor who I had selected for myself, for my child's birth, unfortunately, he didn't do water births.
But why did you select that doctor then?
Because he was the mentor who got me into doula work, and I felt most comfortable with him. I trusted him totally. So I was okay with a natural birth, even if it was not a water birth. So I decided that, and plus my conceiving was really tough, and it was a very difficult journey already. So I decided, and I looked at him and I said, is there anything that we need to take care of, or anything that we need to keep an eye out for, or do you need me to have a C-section, because this journey has been the pregnancy journey was very difficult as well. And he says, oh, just shut up and get out. We are not doing any of that. We're going in for a completely natural birth. So 8 months out of 9 of my pregnancy, I was on bed.
What was wrong with your pregnancy?
So when I conceived for the first few weeks, there was no fetal heart rate. So they couldn't find it. So they wanted to wait. And then finally, when they decided that, maybe it's not moving forth, luckily we did hear a heartbeat. But that too, my life is very filmy, mind you. I was sitting at home alone, and suddenly I get up and I was just gushing. At around 8 or 9 weeks. And I was alone, and I had to call everyone home, and we thought that we had lost the baby. We ran, like my parents took me in the car, cleaning me up to the hospital, to the nearby hospital. The minute the doctor saw me, they were taking me in for a DNC. A DNC is basically cleansing out the uterus, and she says, I'm so sorry, you can try again later. And that was what was on everyone's mind anyways. And luckily, my doctor called in the middle and said, what's happening there? And I told him, and he said, did they do an ultrasound? And I suddenly realized, in all that stress, that we had never done the ultrasound. I said, you need to do an ultrasound first. And she says, no, it's okay, we already know. I said, doc, you need to do an ultrasound first. And they got the ultrasound machine to the OT where I was, and that was the first time that I heard my son's heartbeat.
So, wow, but you saved your son's life?
He saved my son's life, which is why I was eventually with him, for the birth. I immediately caught an ambulance and rushed straight to my doctor. After that, I refused to be anywhere else. And then my son decided to want to be born in the middle of the 4th or 5th month. So I needed a cerclage to keep him back in. And then he was stubborn as he is now. So he decided to break my cerclage and try to come out again. So again, we had to redo the cerclage. So it was a very traumatic 8 months, to be very honest, where I was not allowed to even get up to.
What is a cerclage?
It's the stitch, where they stitch your cervix so that it doesn't open up. So at around 4 or 5 months, I was already 3 centimeters dilated. I was getting contractions, so they had to stop the labor for me. And that happened twice. So those 8 months were quite difficult. And my son, when he was born, he gave us another scare there also. He took a while to adjust to our world, because he was in some level of distress. But then everything, touch wood, went off well. The pediatrician was amazing with my child. I think it's because of these 2 doctors that I am where I am today, because they really put in that effort in educating the families who, are birthing with them, in taking care of them, in respecting their birth plans. And that is so important in today's day and age, where we hear of unnecessary C-sections happening left, right and center. There's a cord around the neck, take her in for a C-section. The baby is 3.5 kgs, take her in for a C-section. In that day and age, when you have these kind of doctors who are actually pushing moms to do the right thing, to birth naturally for their benefit, those are the kind of doctors that you want to be with.
I think it's also remarkable that you could have a less medicated birth because you had a doctor. Yeah, because if you would like,
A
I mean, of course,
supportive
if you would have had
doctor, yeah.
another doctor, you would have had a more medicated birth. But thanks to the medical professionals that you were surrounded with, you had as little medical intervention
Exactly.
as
I
possible.
had a natural birth. I had a completely natural birth, and that's what I mean. Which woman would not want that? You know, unnecessarily. Why would you want to go in for a surgery if there's not enough reason? You know, if there is a reason, if there is a medical reason, then a C-section is one of the boons that we have, you know, which science has given us. But if there is a genuine need for it, but if there's not a need for it, why would we want to go in for a surgery when it's our body's natural instinct to birth our babies vaginally?
Yeah, and thanks to
that
medicine, the
makes-
baby stayed in. Also,
Exactly.
if you wouldn't have had medicine
Exactly.
that stitches up your cervix.
It has to be a perfect balance. There has to be a balance. You use the interventions if they are medically required, but otherwise birth is such a beautiful and natural process. Why would you want to, you know, not ruin it by unnecessarily using interventions?
But when they stitch you up, are you under, like, you can't be under anesthesia, so you're fully awake?
You're awake, you're awake. It's local anesthesia at the time for the cerclage, yeah. There's local anesthesia that they use.
Wow, twice.
Even today I tell him, I said, how much you've troubled me, you know, no one else in this world has troubled me. But look at him today, he's 8 years old, he's healthy, he's rocking. He drives me up the wall, but he's one of the best things that could ever happen to me, you know.
And you were scared of so many things happening before your birth, and then all of these things. Did you
Yeah.
have you ever experienced them with other women before you were pregnant? That these things happened, like that the baby was crowning too early, or
Not as much. I think all the learning that I needed to receive on interventions was received during my labor and birth, but I learnt a lot. So now I can support women a lot better if they're going through the same thing.
yeah, if you would have had an easy birth and labor, you wouldn't be able to
I'd be
empathize.
like, why? Don't worry, it's okay. But now I know what, you know, other mamas are going through sometimes. So it's easy. It's much better to support them with this kind of. I truly believe for doulas, you cannot learn in the books. You have to go for births. You have to be with families. You have to support mamas, and that's the best learning. So there's limited that you can learn off the books. And that's great that, you know, all the organizations that are training doulas today are giving them that opportunity and telling them that you have to attend a couple of observatory births before you get your certification, because that's what's going to give them the insight into what they're actually going to be doing during the labor and birth, you know. So it's such a beautiful experience, and your doula has to be there to uplift it even more.
I mean, I wouldn't trust a doula who has never been to a birth, because then it's like,
You never know, but imagine if that first mama never trusted me.
no, that's true. But then you know that you're training that, like, then you
Yeah.
don't have expectations, right? It's
Yeah.
like when you see a midwife in training, you don't expect them to do your birth. You know that they have to learn, so you make them observe. But
Observe, and I mean, you never know who can give you the best, and it actually depends a lot about who you gel with. You know, you may have take any mama for example. She may come to me and not be comfortable with me, but be comfortable with a doula who's had maybe 5 births or 6 births of an experience. It doesn't matter. The point is that that mama should deserve the support that she gets, whether it's a doula who's done 100 births or 200 births or 5 births. As long as the mama is comfortable with that person, as long as the mama gels and bonds with that person, that's the most important thing. You know, the number of births doesn't matter. That's what I personally feel. You have to have that comfort zone and that bonding to be able to move forth positively. I mean, she may come to me, but if our energies don't match, if she's not, you know, she's getting a little uncomfortable with me being around, that's actually going to have a negative impact on her entire labor and her birthing experience. So I would in fact tell her that no, it's okay, don't worry, whoever you're more comfortable with.
what is the? Do you have any births that really stayed with you?
My first water birth,
Oh yes.
because I was almost going to fall into the pool because I was so anxious. I had never seen a water birth before, and I was quite wary of understanding, you know, whether, you know, how it's going to be, and this baby is coming out in the water, so I was all geared up and ready to jump in if, you know, I need to intervene.
But who came up with the idea of the water
But,
birth? Was it the mother or the doctor, or
So
how
the
did
mama
this-
was looking for a water birth, and the doctor already was doing water births. So Dr. Amit, I did my first water birth with him, and it was gorgeous because, I mean, I'm looking at him and I'm waiting for him to spring into action, because that's what I had seen, you know, doctors birthing the baby. And he's like, that's it, you can do it. And the mama birthed her own baby and held her own baby, and I was in shock. I was like, oh, this really happens? Because we've only seen videos of this online, you know, and I was like, okay, he's not doing anything, he's not moving, do I need to move? But the baby was born beautifully, where mama actually lifted up the baby herself and put the baby to the chest. And I think that image, that visual has just stuck with me. So now whenever we are having our water births also, I know, I tell them, go back, it's okay, they're good, you know. Along with being supportive to the families, you give them their space. You know, you give the couple their space. Sometimes daddies get into the pool. They have full freedom of whatever position they want to be in for birthing. You know, sometimes daddies are sitting behind and just holding mamas and hugging them from behind, and then they both birth the baby together. You know, I mean, that image, that visual is gorgeous.
The empowerment of like when you birth a baby and you hold it up yourself, it feels like you really did it yourself.
Exactly.
Of course, you do it yourself as a woman, like even if the doula is behind you,
but yourself, yeah.
But this is even more yourself because you're taking it
Yeah.
out into the world with your hands.
See, we are support. We are the support, but it's your birth. Today, you ask any birthing professional, whether it be a doula or a midwife, or for that matter, even a few gynaecs, it's not our birth. We shouldn't be in charge of that birth. It's the mama and her body which is in charge of that birth. So all it takes is a little bit of respect. All it takes is a little bit of love and care and compassion for that birthing mama. And the minute you have that, you're on journey to a beautiful experience.
So what would you describe your job as a doula to be like? Like what is your job? What do you do?
What is my job? So my job is basically to give unbiased support. By unbiased I mean it's not, like I said, my birth. So me teaching mamas that this is right and you should do this and you should not do this, no, that's not the job of a doula. The job of a doula is to be able to support the mama in whatever decision she makes, so that she feels empowered and she's able to birth her baby in the manner that she has envisioned for herself.
So what is the range of births that you see, that you work on?
I've seen all births. I've seen vaginal births with interventions, without interventions, you know, totally natural births, water births, home births. I was at Raki's home birth as well. So Raki's home birth was the first home birth that I actually did. That woman is something else. She is such a strong girl, and you know, when she was in the pool, her husband, her partner joined in as well, and both of them were sitting in the pool, and again her partner birthed the baby, you know. And I remember being there for quite a while, in fact, and her midwife was amazing. She just kept sitting outside with a serene look, you know, on her face, and then finally she stepped in the water and she helped them. And I think that experience also gave me the courage to know that earlier I remember telling Raki, you know, that Raki, don't have a home birth, just come to the hospital. You know, what if this happens at home? What if that happens at home? What if the baby needs an NICU, etc., etc., you know, all of that. By then my son was born and my child had needed the NICU, so you know, that stuck in my brain. But she says, no, this is where I want to birth. This is my space and I want to have my baby here. So until the time that she was in labor, I was petrified in my heart, but I never showed it. But when her baby came out, when her baby was born and, you know, at her chest, that was all it took for me to know that yes, this is one of the best ways a mama can give birth to a baby.
So have you seen in those like 1.5 decades that you've worked now, this is almost a generation of women, I would say. It's a generation.
True.
What has changed in the birthing industry? Can you call it an industry? Is there an industry? Or
it is an industry, unfortunately, because you know, hospitals are here to make money, honestly. I'll give you an example. I had one doc who comes up to me and says, listen, this mama has to have a C-section. And I looked at him and I said, why? He's saying, no, the baby's heart rate is fluctuating, we need to go in for a C-section. And I could make out, I mean, that's that bit of experience, that there was nothing of that sort. And then this, you know, afterwards I find out that the doctor actually had to go for a family function, and that's why this mama was taken in for a C-section. And there was no logic. I could not for the life of me even fathom how something like that could have been done. So I obviously never went back and worked there after that. But that's how birth works over here. You know, many doctors
I think
have
not only over here, honestly. I
all
think
over the world.
Yeah,
actually.
people prefer a Friday afternoon baby, and then like.
I won't forget, you know, when it was 11th of November 2011, I had just started my work at that time as a doula. You know, it was just a few births down. But there were applications that had come in for a C-section because they wanted their baby to have that birthday, you know, 11th November 2011. And I remember doc just gave all of them off. He's saying, nothing doing, I'm not doing this for anybody. But I think the problem here is education. Until until moms and families don't educate themselves on the birthing process, it's very difficult for them to understand what they deserve. You know, if you are well informed, if you know the kind of choices you have, and if your doctor and the hospital is supportive to those choices, that's when you can move towards a positive experience. But if you have no idea and you're reliant totally on somebody else saying that whatever my doctor says, I'm going to do it, if you don't even educate yourself a little bit, then for whatever reason, if you've chosen the wrong caregiver, then you're at the hands of that caregiver and you have to say yes to whatever is happening over there, because you didn't make that effort to educate yourself and inform yourself to make proper choices and decisions.
What are ways to
educate yourself? Today, darling, Google is one of the biggest platforms. However, it can be a little overwhelming. So I personally feel that mamas should definitely attend prenatal classes, Lamaze classes, hypnobirthing classes, because these are ways that you prep yourselves. You know, more workshops on birthing. I mean, today, when I started off, I remember there were barely any people doing classes. You know, I mean, you'd have to actually search, and everyone was going to just one class, you know, the entire locality.
Yeah, that breathing class. I mean, my mom only told me about like, oh, there's this breathing class, and then after you give birth, there's some like for your what do you call it, for your
tummy line,
for your tummy line, and for your kegels that you do. It's like there's two classes, one in the beginning, one in the end.
One in the beginning. No, but today you have to see the number of people who have come out as childbirth educators and are putting in a lot of effort into educating women on their birthing rights. So, I mean, wherever you are, it's convenient. You have online classes, you have classes in almost every locality, especially in Bombay. I mean, in any suburb, you've got prenatal classes and postnatal classes happening, Garbh Sanskar classes happening, hypnobirthing classes happening. So, I think parents have to take that front footing. Parents have to educate themselves. They have to take, you know, they have to take that little bit of a more of an effort to be able to understand that this is the way their baby needs to be born. This is the natural way of their baby being born. And yes, if there is any need for whatever medical intervention due to medical reasons, then you have a doctor who you are comfortable with, who can help you out there. And you know, to be very honest, Mika, the system abroad, the midwifery system of care, is something that we definitely need to get back to India. When you have a midwife for your birth along with the support of a doula, there are much lesser interventions taking place. Mamas have, you know, there's a lot more option of maybe getting into the water or laboring in a shower, you know, laboring while being active. So you have those many more options rather than just lying down in a bed and taking an epidural. So if that system of care comes in, the opportunities for mamas to have these kind of beautiful birthing experiences open up completely.
That's true. Even though I had one podcast guest who came from Sweden and where there is only midwives.
Yeah.
Have you seen the episode?
I haven't.
It's worth watching.
I wanna watch it.
It really scared me because like the lack of medical intervention is also scary. I mean, you should be able to have doulas and midwives, of course, midwives are medical professionals, but not to the extent that a doctor would be. And
That's
it felt very,
situation,
it felt really strange how she was talking about it like that. There was no sonography, nothing, and that's the medical system over there. So that, I found that very shocking.
That sounds scary. There are always two sides of a coin. It has to be balanced. I mean, you have to be balanced at some point. You can't be, I always tell my, you know, moms come to me saying, either they'll come to me saying, I'm really scared of labor, I want to take the epidural as soon as labor starts. Some moms come to me saying, we don't want any interventions, we want a completely intervention-free birth and we want to have a water birth. I respect everything, okay. But you need to see how things are going. You know, you don't have to decide beforehand. You don't know how labor is going to move for you beforehand. So be balanced, be ready, prep yourself well, and then you've got all the things in front of you to choose from if you do need any of them. I mean, deciding on whether you want to take up an intervention before labor even starts doesn't make sense.
Yeah, also because
You know?
sometimes if labor is too fast, you can't even take an epidural, so then bad luck.
Bad luck or good luck that labor is really fast.
Yeah.
You don't have to decide beforehand, no? You just wait and see how you're feeling, see how things go. Give your mind, give your body, give your baby that chance. And then if not, if you're uncomfortable or if you feel like, you know, you would like to take a certain intervention, it's your choice again completely.
Where do you see the benefits in having a natural birth versus going in for a planned C-section where everything is planned beforehand and you know what you're getting into?
C-sections are a bone of science when it comes to saving a life. But when we go in for unnecessary C-sections without any medical reasoning, they do have certain side effects. It is a surgery. It is an operation. So your body is being, you know, cut, to be literal. When it comes to a natural birth, our bodies are meant to birth, you know. If our bodies know how to create a baby out of a sperm and an egg coming together, our body has created this entire baby, right? Our body knows how to birth that baby. So let me give you an example. Now if you think of yourself in labor, okay, now think of yourself as having just given birth to your baby vaginally. Within the next 5 to 10 minutes you're on your feet, you're walking around, you're caring for your baby yourself, you're breastfeeding the baby, versus after a C-section you're lying flat for the next 25 hours, 24 hours or how many ever hours, where the baby is, we find it very difficult to latch the baby on when mamas are lying down, because then normally hospitals have to keep one staff member there to hold the baby on for the next 35 minutes. So think of it that way, is that most of the C-section babies are given formula. So if you've birthed via C-section, first you're lying flat, then there is obviously a lot of discomfort because you've had a surgery. There is a slightly longer recovery period as well, you know, from the surgery. So would you like to be on your feet in 5 minutes, or would you like that longer recovery process? Sometimes the entire journey of breastfeeding also does get slightly delayed post a C-section. So babies do tend to be given formula by the hospitals using, you know, either a palada. Some hospitals even use bottles for newborns, which I for the life of me cannot understand why. Giving a bottle to a baby who's just born, I mean, why is that baby who's getting free flowing milk from a bottle going to want to then put in the efforts to latch on to mama later? So I think there is lack of knowledge in that space in our hospitals today, which can be bettered. There are a lot of initiatives coming around, like if you may have heard of the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, which basically supports breastfeeding within the golden hour of life for the mamas and the babies. So a lot of hospitals are getting that education now, getting working on delayed cord clamping, immediate skin to skin touch with the baby, breastfeeding within the golden hour. So you were asking me how I've seen things change. I've definitely, where 15 years ago my mamas used to be lying down with legs in stirrups, to today my mamas are squatting and birthing in a pool. So you can see the graph of change right there.
Do you see that it has an effect in terms of, put it very bluntly, happiness? Or do you think women are anyway, like they get the endorphins, they get the oxytocin, they're anyway like just really happy people when they've given birth vaginally and like without any major tears and stuff, so it doesn't matter in which position they give birth? Or do you think it has an impact on how they feel later on?
If they're forced to assume certain positions or go through certain things, if they are not comfortable doing it and they've had to do it, mamas do tend to express their hurt much later, maybe a couple of weeks post birth, where they then remember their birthing experience and it kind of sticks in. But as long as they have been given the freedom of choice, if they want to lie down and birth, if that is their choice, my mamas are completely happy. It's all about giving them the choice. If they are doing what they feel intuitively that they want to do during the birth, they come out feeling a lot more motivated and positive.
And in your experience, what do you think is the best position?
To birth or to labor?
Ooh, these are two different things. Okay, say. Everything's a blur, there's no memory.
No, there is. It's somewhere back there, just get it out. If this was a pillow, if I hold a pillow cover up like this, my pillow isn't falling down. But the minute I start jiggling the pillow cover, the pillow starts to move down, right? So with our bodies, the more movement, the faster the baby is able to descend and come down, right? So just lying flat in bed, it doesn't really help much unless and until mama's really tired and mama needs that rest. You rest for a while, then get up, walk around, sit on the birth ball, go for a shower. Use gravity to the best of your ability, during labor. So gravity enhancing positions, any of them, whether it be squatting, standing, leaning, going up the stairs, down the stairs, any sort of exercise, lunges, they're all very helpful during labor.
Exercise during labor, it feels like I don't like exercise in life. Now I'm in pain and I have to do exercise.
You feel more comfortable by doing it, so that's the plus point. My mamas who are lying down, and I keep telling them, I say, would you like to get up, when they're in labor? They're like, no, we don't feel like. And I'd be like, why don't you try to go in for a shower, you'll feel better. I'm too tired. And then finally, slowly we have to motivate them and coax them to get up. And once they get up, then they don't want to sit back down, because then they realize that, oh, this is a lot more comfortable for me, There's a lot less pressure on my tailbone, so my back hurts less. So it's all about, like I said, having the freedom to try different things during labor and do whatever's comfortable for you.
But use gravity.
Try to use gravity as much as possible.
What are other hacks that you think are always working, at least for a limited amount of time?
I have three of them actually. One is my birth ball, which is my best friend during labor. When my mamas are sitting on that birth ball, they are so comfortable. It releases a lot of pressure that they feel in the back. The second one is a hot water bag, which again works wonders. The only thing is, you have to be very careful while using it, because mama's skin tends to get a little sensitive during labor. So you have to obviously, cover it up properly and give the mama just the warmth on her lower back. That's very helpful. And what else? Yeah, the third thing is a balan, a rolling pin, which I told you about. So your rolling pin really helps with massages. So your hands and your rolling pin, when you give a mama some sort of massages on her back, which we call counter pressure or effleurage. Effleurage is a more lighter touch. Counter pressure is basically good amount of pressure on mama's back. That also helps to release the back pain that a mama is feeling during labor. So that kind of supports their labor experience. So where they are dealing with the surges on their own by breathing, by relaxing, at the same time we are supporting their back with our massages. So they're a lot more comfortable and able to cope with labor in a much better manner.
And for you, as a doula, I always want, it's such a physically intense, it's so exhausting. How do you call this thing where you put a scarf?
The rebozo.
The rebozo.
Yeah.
And you do, I can't even, like if you tell me to do this now for 5 minutes and like whatever at the gym, my arms start getting tired, and like, how do you manage? Do you go to the gym every day and like practice?
Do I look like I go to the gym every day? No, my births are more than enough for gymming. But being a doula it's not easy. It is definitely tough. But then when we are supporting the mamas, we have daddies as a team support for us as well. So the best thing for any doula would be is to talk and teach the daddy the massages that you're, whichever which you may use during labor, so that daddies can, basically be our backup plan when we get really tired, we need to rest our arms. It's teamwork, right? The mama, the daddy, and your doula.
Are the fathers always so involved?
Definitely. My daddies definitely be involved, otherwise I get very upset.
Do you tell them?
Of course. So when we do our prenatal classes as well, somehow, I mean, I have not really noticed many daddies not being around, but sometimes there are a couple of them who are way too busy, and then you have to gently explain to them the need for them to be there, but then they do come, they're there.
I guess your job is to gently explain to people what they should be doing.
Sometimes they don't realize, each person to themselves, but I have cases, sometimes where daddies are over enthusiastic and they want to keep talking to mama and, keep massaging her, and mama's like, just leave me for just 2 minutes, I just want to be. So there you have to tell the daddies, daddy, come on, let's just step to the side for a couple of minutes and give her space, So it goes both ways.
I guess you're also there as a counselor and
Yeah.
mediator.
I think more than a doula, you're a mediator, to be honest. But it's nice to be that. It's a jigsaw puzzle coming together, you know, where everyone comes together to support that baby being born.
If you look at the future, what would you like to happen?
I mean, one of my dreams is to get Waterbirths into each and every birthing center and hospital in Bombay. In Bombay, or hopefully in India in the long run. But I have seen some beautiful births happening, you know, very gentle, very beautiful births happening in the water. And I think that for families, they deserve the choice. They deserve to be able to choose whether they want to have their baby in the water or whether they want to have a natural birth or not. I think we as individuals today have just left the choice on the caregivers, on the hospitals, and that's not right, because if we have a choice, then we can pick and choose the way we want to bring our baby into this world. So there has to be that level of respect for a birthing family. You know, today if you go to any of the state-run hospitals, it's really sad to see the condition that they are in.
But what could be done there on a very...
At least respectful birth, a good amount of space for mamas to labor properly, educated staff to be able to guide them properly. Obviously doulas in every hospital, you know, trying to support mamas to throughout the process of labor. It just takes that much to be able to give them a better birthing experience.
Actually,
you know.
it's all not even medical things that you're saying right now. It's just very more human.
See, medical things are there. Medical things are already there. Yes, you know, obviously updated equipment and all of that is the medical perspective. But when you're looking at a more humane perspective, you want these mamas to feel respected during their birth. They are mamas in labor. You don't want to tie them up to a bed. I've actually seen women who are tied up to a bed, and these are things that you know, when once they get in there, they stick in there, and it really bothers you. And if it bothers me so much, imagine what that mama must be going through when she remembers how she brought her child into this world, you know. So I think more humane and respectful practices are needed.
This is probably how generations before us have given birth. If you look at the birthing practices earlier, they weren't very compassionate.
Maybe, but one thing about the birthing practices earlier was, this is my point of view, women of that day and age were not as pampered as we are today. If you ask my mum, she was at home when labor started, and she walked up to the hospital, which was some 15-20 minutes away, so she's gone walking to birth me there, and she had a 2-hour labor and she delivered her baby, you know.
What does she think about your work?
My mom's quite very, very supportive. My mom loves the work I do. In fact, every time I come out of a birth, she'll be like, is it a girl or is it a boy? Did everything go well? So she, touch wood, has really been my backbone. She and dad both, my husband and my son, are my other backbones. Today, when I leave for a birth, my son knows he's not seen me for the next 24 hours for sure. And my husband just takes over. So, you know, everyone has only and only pushed me forward and supported me in what I've decided to do with my life. And if I didn't have them, I don't think I'd have been able to, you know, do any doula work for that matter.
Yeah, you need, like, I mean, it was so difficult just meeting you here. I would like to say that I'm really grateful for you coming here after I don't know how many tries. I wonder how you have a sort. Actually, I made one episode which I just called episode Oops, because I was like, well, there was supposed to be an episode, but you had to rush for labor, which is fine. I just wonder how you have friends. How do you care for your family? Because you're so busy caring for other people and their babies and their families, and it's always on a short notice.
It's tough, it's tough. So in fact, nowadays what we've done now, since my son is growing older, he comes at the beginning of the school year with the entire list of all the holidays which happen throughout the year, and then we block dates from the very beginning. So like for now, my dates for next year are actually blocked off on my calendar, where he says, no, you can't take births during this time, you know. But sometimes yet my babies decide to come earlier or decide not to come on time and come later. So that's, you know, I missed his first sports day. I missed his almost missed his first day of school. I've missed so much of my son, But at the end of the day, it gives me that pride that I'm actually supporting so many other babies coming to the world, and it's only because I have a child. I mean, imagine an 8-year-old being so supportive, you know. So most of the time, if he does a video call with me, he'll be telling my mamas, okay, all the best, you know, do well, and like they're going in for an exam, you know, and he's only 8 years old.
That is adorable.
He is too sweet. I remember, you know, a very funny story actually, which I'm going to tell you, was I got a call from his school one day, and the teacher is talking to me, and she says, you know, I just want to understand, have you by any chance started giving your child sex education? So I said, ma'am, he was around 6 years old at the time, and I said, ma'am, he's only 6 years old, why am I giving him sex ed? And she says, no, I just wanted to know because one of the other children in the class, his mum had a baby, okay, the second sibling, and that boy said, you know, there was a stork that came to my building in the middle of the night and placed a baby outside the door, and your son has gone and told that child, no, the baby doesn't come like that, the baby comes down from mama's bumsy. And that boy started crying, and he went and he told the teacher, and she called me, poor thing, and she said, ma'am, what have you been teaching him? Have you been talking to him about sex and birth? And I said, you know, he listens to my classes, and he knows exactly how a baby is conceived and how a baby is born at the age of 8 even today. So I remember I was making a reel at home one day, and he says, mom, turn the camera here. And I said, why? So he said, you turn it, I'll explain. And he actually explained all the pointers for a good latch. You know, how do you latch a baby on? And I'm staring at him, and I was like, okay, this child knows everything he needs to know about breastfeeding, so he's going to be a good husband for sure.
To future life, you better be grateful. All those sports days that I've missed, they've paid off.
All those. It's so beautiful that he knows, you know. There was a cat who gave birth to kittens down in the building. When the kittens were being born, one of them was away from the mama, and he has picked up that kitten and he has latched the kitten on to the mama, saying that this baby needs her food, and he's just 8. But I think that's what education does, you know. It's because he's seeing us talk so openly about birth and teaching families to be able to respect that powerful notion of birth. You know, that's how he's learning, and that's how the future generation needs to know, you know, the choices that they have. They need to understand what they can ask for, and only once they ask will they receive. No, if you don't ask and if you don't show any interest in asking, why is anyone gonna support you?
So that's what you do with the mothers, no? You're helping them ask.
Even today, sometimes I tell people, they ask me, what do you do? I say, I'm a doula. What are you? You know, they don't know. So it's important for us to educate, and I think earlier it was just a few of us, handful of us, who were educating, you know, spending a lot of effort on educating people. But today there's so many more. So you're seeing that, you know, change happening right in front of my eyes.
I also find it a bit shocking that you explain to like hospital staff, even though maybe they are not birthing specialists, but like there's a golden hour, the baby should latch.
Yeah.
It's quite sad that this needs to be explained. But
so today hospitals are coming forth and telling us, can you come in and train our staff for gentle birthing technique, gentle labor skills. So hospitals are coming forth, and that's the change. You know, earlier we were running behind hospitals to try and get ourselves in there to educate everybody involved in this birth. But today they are coming to us and saying, you know, we just did a Waterbirth training for a hospital in Indore. So it was beautiful because I mean, they samne se came and said, we'd like to start water birthing in our setup, and they wanted to learn, and we, you know, helped them out. And I urge people, you know, that give it a shot. If you choose a water birth, it's not necessary that we're going to hold you down, you have to birth in the water. You have a choice. If you want to birth inside, birth inside. If you want to step out and birth outside, it's your choice. But at least give yourself that opportunity to try. There's no harm in trying.
do you feel like when, you know how women feel dejected maybe when they get, when they have to take an emergency C-section or C-section. How do you feel as a doula when the birth doesn't happen naturally and you can't do your full buffet of expertise? You can't use your full expertise. Do you feel, what does it make you feel like?
See, sometimes if a mama has not got the kind of birth that she's been, you know, really working hard towards, you do feel bad. However, I always tell mamas a single thing, it's not the journey. You know, you have to accept the journey as it is. You have to, sometimes the baby makes a choice as well, and the baby may choose that they don't want to be born vaginally, and you have to respect that. You know, if you've seen this movie 3 Idiots, when the baby is born, they say, "Tu to engineer banega, tu to doctor banega." You know, we always tend to force our opinions on our babies, and I think birth is the first learning that we have where we learn to give our babies that respect to make the choice themselves on how they also want to be born. There was one mama who was hell-bent on a natural water birth. She was really wanting to have a water birth, and she was totally, you know, she was fully dilated, everything was going smooth, but the baby just was not being born. She was feeling that slight urge to push, and the baby's head would come down and then go back up, and then come down and then go back up, and finally the baby's heart rate started dropping. So she went in for an emergency C-section, and when the baby did come out, we noticed that the umbilical cord was wrapped around the legs. You know how a bungee jump is? So the cord was allowing the baby to move down a little bit, but then pulling the baby back up. Now at a time like this, if we had to force our opinion and say, no, whatever said and done, we want to have a water birth, we want to have a natural birth, it's obvious that baby would have gone into distress, because the baby was trying its best to be born, but there was something holding the baby back, right? So anything can happen. Birth is such a vast space, you know, so you have to see how things go and go with the flow. And if for whatever reason you do have an emergency C-section, you have to be able to accept that as well, because if there has been reason, then you should be happy about the fact that C-sections do exist and they do save lives. If you didn't have that option, and if the baby was, say, in a level of distress, then what? You know, so you have to be open to everything. You put in your best efforts, you educate yourself, you get yourself to be well informed, you choose to walk on a path which suits you, which is obviously a path which is more natural. However, if for whatever reason the situation changes, you have to be able to accept that as well.
So what do you do as a doula then when there's a C-section?
Tell them the exact same thing. But if any of my mums are going in for a C-section, then we definitely do put in a lot more effort onto the immediate skin to skin with the mama and the baby later, and breastfeeding during the golden hour as well. So in fact, even my babies who are born via C-section, sometimes they are breastfeeding in the OT while the surgery is actually going on. So we latch the baby on and allow them that, you know, time and space with the mother without being taken away and put in a warmer somewhere else. So sometimes my daddies are holding the baby skin to skin, you know, in the room. Mamas are putting the baby on their skin, and then the breastfeeding process also starts off. And that just is beautiful, because then the baby is never taken away. Yeah. You know, otherwise in hospitals, the minute it's a C-section, the babies are taken away to the nursery and given formula. So we try our level best not to let that happen.
Wow, beautiful. Well, I think you have your appointment. No, you still have half an hour until you have to rush for your next. I've scheduled you in.
I have a mama who's birthing with us. It's her second baby now.
Okay. So you told the baby to stay in for another like 3-4 hours?
No, I'm just going to meet her.
Okay.
Baby's not coming today. Baby's not due for a while. So I'm just going to meet her for lunch.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah. I'm glad that we are not in the way of anyone being born.
No, not today. And I'm so sorry we've delayed this so much.
Like we never appreciate how you were speaking about your very first birth, which then ended up, I don't know, like your first 3 births, which was like a 50-hour exercise.
It was a marathon.
Yeah, we don't understand, like we don't think about it. We think like, oh my God, I was in labor for X number of hours, but that you've been there and you've like done this and like walked with them, and also managed the nurses, and also managed the father who's probably so exhausted, in a bad mood, fainting. I don't know, multiple things could happen. So we never appreciate the work that the caregivers actually do. So I think it's good. This has made me understand that it's very difficult for you to have a social life, and you're sacrificing this for other mothers, which is just.
Well, that is why, you know, today, now more and more doulas are coming in. More and more people are educating themselves to become doulas, which is fabulous, because now you have team. You have that team support, you know, that sisterhood. That I in fact forget sisterhood. I had two males, two gents also, who wanted to become doulas, and they were talking to me about you know, what's the process and can you train us and all of that. So it's so lovely to see human beings wanting to go out there and support other human beings to give birth. And the more of us that there are, that much more support is there for each of us, you know, in case labor runs long and we want to give 100% to the mamas. If we're tired, we have someone to take over for a while, and we do the same for them. So working in teams always is much more beneficial. So there are a lot of you know, in different cities, different countries, there are teams of doulas who work together. So now that in Bombay we have so many more doulas you know, getting educated and coming in with certifications, now things are opening up. Today a lot more hospitals are giving permission to doulas. There are many still who say no, nothing doing, nobody besides the husband coming in to birth. But that's also changing slowly.
Even the husband wasn't allowed earlier,
Yeah.
so I think that's already
That's another change that we're seeing. That's also good, no? Even today sometimes they don't allow the husbands inside, and then I have to, you know, literally give my mamas and daddies different references so that again they can choose, you know, whether they want their partner in there with them or not.
Well, still a long way to go. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, my darling.
Thank you so much for listening to 9+9, the Honest Pregnancy and Birthing podcast with Sanam today, who's a doula and who will hopefully also share some things for our show notes, like websites or books, or the hypnobirthing course. Any kind of thing that you think would be helpful, I'd love to include this in the show notes, and obviously your contact as well, in case anybody who lives in Bombay is listening to this podcast and or has friends who live here in Bombay and want them to meet you and understand all the options that they have in giving birth. And then I always forget the feedback at the end. So if you have any feedback to this episode, or you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know somebody who you think should really be telling this story, you can get in touch with us on 9+9, that is 9 as a number, PLUS, and again 9 as a number, at Harkat, HARKAT.in, or just on Instagram, 9+9 podcast, and you can message us. Also, please like, share, comment, tell the world about this, because that's what we're here for. Thank you.